Good afternoon from the West Coast and good morning from Asia. Thank you for coming to the fourth event of UCLA's Taiwan in the World Speaker Series. I'm Shizhan Dai, organizer of today's forum. I'm currently a postdoctoral researcher at UCLA Asia Pacific Center. Under the leadership of Professor Ming Zhou, the Asia Pacific Center promotes research on topics related to inter-Asian and trans-Pacific studies. Our Center's Taiwan in the World program is supported by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Taiwan and TICO Los Angeles. The Taiwan in the World program is part of our Center's Taiwan Studies program. It aims to broaden academic conversations on issues related to Taiwan and build international community of scholars well versed with Taiwanese culture and society. Please feel free to subscribe to our Center's newsletter so you can be updated with our future events on Taiwan studies and other activities in our center. I'd like to thank our center staff, Executive Director Elizabeth Leister and Assistant Director Aaron Miller for their support in organizing this wonderful event. Today's forum is moderated by Dr. Eric Shefford. Dr. Sheffer is an economic and urban geographer and holds the Alexander von Humboldt Chair in Geography at UCLA. As a geographer, he seeks to account for the persistence of uneven geographical development at scales ranging from the global to the neighborhood, and examines how spatialities produced by social-ecological processes feed back to shape the trajectories of those processes. His research about spatialities, ecological security, and urban sustainability have been published in Environment and Planning, Regional Studies, and Journal of Urban Technology, as well as in several edited books. His research has focused on urban environmental justice in the US, on eco-cities in China, and on global urban resilience initiatives. He is in the midst of a multi-year research program on trajectories, causes, and social-ecological justice implications of massive land use transformations currently underway in Jakarta and Bangalore. I think due to some technical issues, Dr. Schaffer will join us later and also moderate the Q&A. And now I will introduce our speaker and our discussant, Dr. Xinhuang Xiao and Dr. Roy Chong Lee. Professor Xinhuang Michael Xiao is chairman of Taiwan Asian Exchange Foundation and chairman of the Center for Southeast Asian Studies at National Chengchi University. He's also an adjunct research fellow, Institute of Sociology at Academia Sinica, and professor of sociology at National Taiwan University and National Sun Yat-sen University. Professor Xiao is also chair professor of Hakka Studies at National Central University. He served as national policy advisor to the President of Taiwan between 1996 and 2006, and is currently senior advisor to the President of Taiwan. His area of specialization include middle class, civil society, and democratization in Asia, environmental movements, sustainability and risk society, and comparative Hakka studies in Taiwan and Southeast Asia. And for our discussant, Dr. Roy Chong Lee. Dr. Lee is currently the Deputy Executive Director of the Taiwan WTO and RTA Center, Chonghua Institution for Economic Research. Dr. Lee specialized in trade liberalization policy, WTO, service trade, non-tariff measures, and regional integration. He is policy advisor for Taiwan's trade negotiations with China mainland, New Zealand, and Singapore, capital-based expert for Taiwan's delegation for WTO service trade and TBT meetings, and on the general liberalization policy. He is on the indicative list of dispute settlement arbitrators for the Taiwan, Singapore, and Taiwan, New Zealand ECAs. In other capacities, Dr. Lee is a frequent column writer on liberalization policy for major newspapers in Taiwan. So thank you so much for Dr. Xiao and Dr. Lee for joining us today. And our event will start with Dr. Xiao's presentation. Dr. Xiao, please.
Okay. Good evening there, Dr. Dai, Dr. Shepherd, Executive Director Leicester, and Director Zhou. And my discussant, Dr. Roy Lee. It's my pleasure to be on this webinar, and give me a good opportunity to share with you about what happened, what has been done since 2016 of the Taiwan's new policy initiative called Taiwan's New Southbound Policy. And I hope that I use the 20-some minutes to share with you and about the retrospect and the prospect. So I'll prepare the PowerPoint, which I will show now. Okay. The new southbound policy is an area which we call the southbound policy. They include 10 ASEAN countries, that's here, and also these 6 South Asian countries. As I mentioned, that there are 18 countries involved in the new southbound policy. The 10 from ASEAN countries, and the 6 from the South Asia, and plus the Himalaya, including Himalayan countries, and plus the down south, the Australia and New Zealand. Now, a few words about the new southbound policy. That was a new policy that initiated by the current president, Tsai Ing-wen, during her campaign for the presidency in 2016. And they were inaugurated in the end of 2016. And if for the focus on the people-centered values, which aim to promote comprehensive various bilateral exchanges with the 18 countries. It covers the government has the 5 flagship programs, including economic and trade, education, and agriculture, and health, and plus on the non-governmental side, which will be we take the TAEF, the Taiwan Asia Exchange Foundation, take the responsibility to have another 5 action program, or if I make it more simply, is a linkage program, which I shall discuss with you later on. And this new southbound policy basically is not an economic or trade policy alone. It's rather a new regional strategy for Taiwan. And after it is inaugurated and after it was implemented, it was well received by the various countries in the target countries. And later on, this new southbound policy has been repeatedly related to the U.S. Indo-Pacific strategy and also the EU's Indo-Pacific report. That means Taiwan's new southbound policy, beyond the economic, beyond the civil society link, it also has a kind of a regional strategy connotation recognized by US and EU. So I think it is very important to mention about that. And also it has a well received from various countries within the new southbound countries. For example, on the various news, Jakarta Post, the Manila Bulletin, and so on and so forth. Now, there are 18 countries. It's quite a big numbers, and at the beginning, for the past 5 years, 8 countries has been designated as the priority countries. They include India, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Vietnam, and Australia. So those are the 8 target priority countries to start with more focus on. And the new southbound policy can together on a more regular basis to work towards a better region. Taiwan can help Asia, and Asia can help Taiwan. And that become the New Southbound policy slogan. And I mentioned during the Yushan Forum, I mentioned that New Southbound policy can prove, and we hope to prove, that Taiwan is not a question, but an answer. I think it's very important through the New Southbound policy initiatives and programs implemented that Taiwan can provide answers to the issues commonly faced in Asia. Nowadays, the UN's new SDG, the Sustainable Development Goal, has been very popularly discussed by both government and civil society, international civil society organizations. And if you look at the New Southbound policy, various policy initiatives and programs implemented, and we can see actually the New Southbound policy has a very well fit in the SDGs. For example, on the industrial talent, educational cooperation has been can correspond on the quality education, gender equality, and also on the partnership for the goal, and so on and so forth. Medical and public health cooperation can correspond to the SDGs, clean water and sanitation, and also on the life on land, and so on and so forth. So therefore, if you look at international spectrum, the New South policy has and can prove that Taiwan has been following and can share the SDGs goal. The practice of New Southbound policy, if we look at the pattern, how it works, we can use the PPPP, the 4 Ps slogan, the public sector here, and that's government take the initiative, take the initiation, of course, and then private sector, the business sector, and plus the people, basically echoed by the civil society, and these are the three sectors work together and develop a genuine and healthy partnership. And the leading role is played by the government, and the government has 5 flagship programs since 2017. First, this is for economic and trade, and second is education and talent cultivation. And this is economic and trade was led by the Ministry of Economic Affairs. Education led by the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Science and Technology, and Regional Agricultural Corporation, led by the Council on Agricultural Affairs. And also the International Medical and Public Health Collaboration is basically led by the Ministry of Health and Welfare. And I understand that Li Chun will focus on this in his response to my talk. And the number 5, which is new, which is very interesting, which is we call the regional social connectivity. And we set up a Taiwan Asia Exchange Foundation to take the responsibility of this. And also we organize an annual Yushan Forum, which I will talk as well. The Yushan Forum is aimed to develop initiate a regional Asia regional dialogue, focus on economic prosperity, social progress, and cultural exchange. So those are the 5 governmental flagship. Now, on the side of beside the government, we have the participation of the civil society. And that is led by the Taiwan Asia Exchange Foundation since 2018, and Yushan Forum since 2017. And this TAEF, which I am the chairman now, we have another 5 action program, or we call it a linkage program. First is on the young leaders engagement. We've tried to promote the dialogue and partnership and collegiality of the young leaders of government and non-governmental sectors, and also on civil society connectivities. And we hope to promote the think tank like-minded in like-minded countries, and also program on civil society connectivity. We encourage civil society, NGOs, NPOs to work with their counterparts in the region. As I mentioned earlier, think tank, we work on the policy report and also the policy recommendations on how to deal with the common issues faced in Asia. And also we look at the program on regional resilience. That means disaster preparedness and also the post-disaster rehabilitation and recovery. And because the Asia, especially from Northeast Asia to Southeast Asia, and Taiwan is part of it, we all faced a lot of natural disasters and also unexpected disasters and man-made disaster, natural-made disaster, natural disaster as well. And also we have a last one, which is a very brand new, it's called the TA program on cultural exchange. We not only look at the civil society, NGO, think tank, and young leaders, we also look at the art and culture. And of course, we organize the annual Yusan Forum. In this context, many people will mention about, well, Taiwan has the Go South policy, 个南向, and was implemented by late President Li Denghui during his presidency. And true that. So I would like to compare the Li administration's Southbound policy, 1994 to 2000, and the Tsai administration's new Southbound policy since 2016. Now the mission, the Denghui's Southbound policy or Go South policy, basically is to try to shift the over dependency on the westbound economic trade and investment in mainland China in PRC, and try to shift the westbound policy to southbound to diverse the investment trade, so that a less dependency can be a reality. And the responsible sectors basically is very limited. It's basically a KMT, Nationalist Party and his party-run business, and plus some economic ministry, and just a few. So basically, it's looking at economic. And the mission of the Tsai Ing-wen's new Southbound policy is beyond the economic strategy. It's not dependent. It's not affiliated, or it's not a responding policy to Taiwan's China policy, but rather a brand new regional strategy. And we hope to develop into an Asian regional policy, which is independent of the Taiwan's China policy. The responsible sectors was very wide. The coordination was led by the Office of the President, National Security Council, and Office of the Trade Negotiation. And there are 12 actually public ministries involved. Besides them, I mentioned about economic affairs, education, health and welfare, foreign affairs, transportation and communication ministry, labor ministry, cultural ministry, science technology ministry, and agriculture, and so on and so forth. And even Hakka, the Council on Hakka Affairs was involved in this new Southbound policy. And plus, that's important, the Denghui's new the Southbound policy has only a government effort, but on the new southbound policy, we have the Taiwan Asia Exchange Foundation and to take over the non-governmental activities. And also we are very much treasure the value of the public-private people's partnerships. Now the policy content, it focuses primarily on Li Denghui's policies on economic and trade cooperation. And Tsai Ing-wen's the new southbound policy has more than economic. That include, as I mentioned earlier, the 5 flagship, and number 5 is the civil society organization, Taiwan Asia Exchange Foundation, and then the Taiwan Asia Exchange Foundation. We have another 5 initiatives, as I mentioned earlier. So that's much more comprehensive. That's what we call comprehensive and people-centered. People-centered means it starts with the beneficiary of the new southbound policy should go to the people concerned, not the money, not the business alone. Now, if you use the policy keywords or slogan, the old southbound policy basically is to make money, and make money beyond China proper, beyond the mainland China's market, go to Southeast Asia. And at that time, we did not do South Asia. We only focus on Southeast Asia. And now in the new southbound policy, I created 5 M's. We make money, of course. We still have the economic and trade flagship program, and we make jobs. We have thousands of Taiwan businessmen in Southeast Asia and South Asia and Australia and New Zealand. We create jobs there, and also we have about 700,000 foreign workers from Southeast Asia and coming to Taiwan, and so we'll create jobs here in Taiwan for our partner countries. And we make friends through TAEF, through young leaders, through culture, through education. We make all kinds of friends. And we make families, which is very unique. And we have about more than 350,000 cross-border female brides who married to Taiwanese men, and we create a job. We create a family together. And I think I always believe that new spouse policy should be a good policy to deal with, to take care of our new immigrants who married to Taiwanese. They are eventually will be the Taiwanese citizens. And we also should be good to our neighbors here, the 700,000. So that's included that. We make value like cooperation, value of equality, value of democracy, and so on and so forth. Overall assessment, the Denghui southbound policy started with and stopped at economics and trade. And the new southbound policy moved beyond economic and trade, the deepening comprehensive partnership with the 18 countries concerned and a country in particular. Now, I will spend a few minutes to talk about the first on the government, the four. Actually, if I make an analogy, there are 5 hands in the new strong policy, 5 hands. And 4 hands.
Professor Cao, I just want to remind you your time is almost up.
Oh, okay. We should stop. Okay, I think the term maybe can supplement with some comment on government and welfare. So 5 hands, and 4 hands was from a government, and 1 hand is by the TAEF. So if we look at the economics, and I think the between when it started 2016 and now, the Taiwan's investment in new strong policy almost expanded by 200%. And also even the trade, bilateral trade has increased and has been doubled from Taiwan's investment in 18 countries. And also the 8 countries investment to Taiwan almost increased by 80%. So that means economic and trade has seen a sign of a growth between Taiwan and the New Southbound countries. And I think that I will skip the statistics. Now, on the education, I think by now we have about, I think we have the Vietnamese, Indonesia, Thailand, Burma, Malay, and Tagalog. The language has been taught in Taiwan's primary school, which means a multilingual education in the primary school, which is very interesting, which the New Spouse policy also kind of made Taiwan a much more accessible, much more friendly to the Southeast Asian languages. And also we have many foreign students here, and actually there are 128,000 foreign students and 50,000 NSP New Southbound policy students, which consists more than half of it. And the makeup, the more than half of our students are from New Southbound policy. That means we offer scholarships to New Southbound policy students, and we encourage Taiwanese students to go to New Southbound policy countries. Okay, here let's go to, I think, and we also provide the vocational training to the New Southbound policy student. On the one hand, providing scholarship, on hand study degree, and on the other hand, giving them a part-time job, and so that they can train themselves and equip themselves for the future career. Now, on this health and public health collaboration, it's very important. I just mention briefly. I think the one country, one center, or the one country, multiple centers. And we have 7 countries. Each country have our Taiwan's major hospital to be the collaborating institution, so that we can help them to diagnose the patient and provide the skill and also train their medical personnel. I think these are very important. One country, one center. I believe Li Chun will mention that later. Agriculture. I think agriculture, we have, let me skip quickly. We have established several demonstration farms. One is in Taiwan, in Indonesia, modern agricultural demo farms in Taiwan, in Indonesia. We have a button mushroom demonstration farms in Bangalore, the Philippines. And also we have the Vietnam demonstration center for dried seed and fruit tree seedling production in 2016 in Vietnam, in Long An province. The purpose is not just to help them how to cultivate, but we provide a new technology so that they can be self-sufficient, and also help them to marketing, and also so that with Taiwan can also later provide the agricultural technology and to export to New Southbound policy countries. Okay, so here is on the agriculture. That's a picture here. Now, the flagship program first on the now I want to shift to the on the non-governmental aspect of the on the New Southbound policy. As I mentioned earlier, TAEF has another 5 action program. I call it action project. I think it to be more correct. Think tank, the young leaders, civil society connectivity, cultural exchange, and regional resilience. On the young leaders, every year we organize, we call the Southeast Asia, South Asia, Taiwan Youth Camp. And that was held with the help of American Institute in Taiwan, AIT, to recruit and to select a young leaders from colleges or governmental or business to come to Taiwan and to share with Taiwanese young leaders. And also that is very interesting because the young leaders in New Southbound policy countries and Taiwan can share their vision and share their perspective of the regional issues and how to deal with it, how to come up with the young leaders' perspective on how to solve the problem. And we also very concerned about the pandemic and also the post-pandemic, the impact on the work on the Asian youth, the lost job, and what happened after the pandemic, and how can we restore the job market, and especially blue collars. Now, this is the young leaders. Now, this is the young leaders, the activities, Now, the think tank, and we come out with, we work with our think tank in India and in Japan, in Philippines and Malaysia and Vietnam, and to look at the regional issues and beyond strategy, beyond the strategic concern or military concern, we look at the broad social, cultural, and economic prospect. And we did every year a survey on Taiwan and Taiwanese business in Vietnam and in 2019 in Indonesia and in Thailand to understand our images in the various countries. I think that's important. We produce a program, publications, and those are the publications. And we also connecting the Taiwan New Southbound policy with the U.S. foreign policy initiative in Asia. And civil society, I think I just mentioned one. During the pandemic, there are more than 30 NGOs of Taiwan has all nonstop engaging in their assistance in more than 10 countries in New Southbound policy countries to helping in education, child and children's and health and so on and so forth. So therefore, the Taiwan's NGO international assistance never stopped, even under the COVID-19 pandemic. And so I think it's important to look at it. And we work with Taiwan Aid, the Taiwan Alliance of NGOs, and to work with corresponding NGOs and civil society in New Southbound policies. And regional resilience, we organize annual, like we call Asian Resilience consortiums. So we can how to be prepared, well prepared about all kind of disaster, earthquake, flood, hurricane, and so on and so forth, and how to recover through community efforts. I think we can share on these various programs, various initiatives in Taiwan, and also we can learn from our partners in Southeast Asia on how to share our experience to deal with disasters and how to build a resilient Asia rather than a disaster Asia. Now, as important to mention, I'm almost the end now. These five action projects, the Taiwan Asia Exchange Foundation cannot and will not do it alone. We established an Asia Engagement Consortium and built by TAEF. We have the Culture and Art Foundation, Prospect Foundation, and also Zhonghua Institution for Economic Research, and also TAITRA, and also Taiwan AID. And AID is the NGO Alliance and the Center for Southeast Asian Study in the National Zhengzhi University and Taiwan Foundation Democracy, and also Cheng Kung University's Center for Vietnamese Study, and also the Taitung University's Austronesian Center and Prasad. So there are 10 NGOs, think tanks, and universities work together. Now, lastly, I will look at the Yushan Forum held by TAEF. And as I mentioned, that we hope the TAEF can be the first one Asian regional dialogue that's go beyond, the concern is go beyond military, strategic, and military concern. And we look into the economic progress, social development, and cultural exchange. Now, conclusion, how we look at the envisioning the NSP in the future. I think it's very important to mention about NSP is not just a manifestation of Taiwan's soft power, but also a warm power. So we make friends, we make families, we make jobs, and we make values. So it's a warm power, and we share the vision in the future. And also the ASEAN here, I think in the past 2 years and a half, the economic development and social stability of the globe has been severely challenged by the pandemic. Now it's a key phase of recovery, and we hope the New South policy can play a role to do that. I think Taiwan's New Southbound policy is moving from Taiwan can help Asia to Taiwan is helping Asia, and we hope that we can help each other. And the Taiwan Warm Power New Southbound but can cultivate partnerships through a people-centered development agenda. Now, it needs to point out that, though, I think many policy makers may be wondering what is the purpose, what is the motivation behind the New Southbound policy. As I mentioned earlier, one point is that this is a new Taiwan's Asian policy. That's to shift from an overemphasis of the Northeast Asia concern or China concern, but to the rest of Asia, Southeast Asia, South Asia, Australia, and New Zealand. So 3 points I want to clarify. New Southbound policy should be viewed as an integral part of Taiwan's role in Indo-Pacific strategy, as initiated by US, India, Japan, and so on and so forth. Second, the New Southbound policy is not directly related to Taiwan's policy objective to join CPTPP or Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. Not directly. I think can be associated with it, but the New Southbound policy has its own independent objectives, as I mentioned, described earlier. New Southbound policy is not a responding regional policy to counter China's Belt and Road Initiative. I think it's very important. Many people wonder. We have a different One Belt, One OBOR has a very focus on the infrastructure investment in the area, in the region. But we focus on people center, we look on the soft power, and we look on the education, agriculture, and also the young leaders, cultural exchange. So therefore, it has little to do with Belt and Road Initiative launched by PRC. I think finally, I wanted to look at the future of NSP. 3 strengthening is in order. We should strengthen the existing regional connectivity by both government agencies and also the private sector and the civil society organization. We should strengthen public-private people's partnership, which we have seen some success. And I think we make friends in all aspects in Southeast Asia and South Asia. And we develop think tanks connectivity in India and also many countries in Southeast Asia. I think I skipped one on the culture. Actually, we have a very active cultural exchange and art artist exchange with Vietnam, and I think that's important. Number three, the strengthening new initiative and implement new agenda, new vision. For example, we like to advocate the post-pandemic economic recovery and how we can work together, and also the young people's employment. I think we should work together to look at the young leaders, young people's work situation. And I think it's lastly, I think the new spouse policy in the next few years, we should really look into the common issues, and maybe we can work together and to implement the sustainable development goal together in the future. So finally, I think the new South policy is a new regional policy and go beyond economic and trade and go beyond the government. And this is really indeed a public-private people's partnership. I think I should end here, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Professor Tsao. So we'll now turn to comments by Dr. Chung Lee, who has his PhD from ANU and is Senior Deputy Executive Director of the WTO and RTA Center at Chonghua Institution for Economic Research. Dr. Lee. And please remind everybody to post your questions into the question and answer if we have time to get to them. I hope so.
Thank you very much, Professor Shepherd, for giving me the floor. I'll be quick, just to save some time for QA discussions. In the last 2.5 years, we have the privilege, and I have the privilege to serve as a director of the office to promote further promotion of the NSP program on health and welfare. So in the next 5 to 7 minutes, I'm going to share some of the observations we collect in the last 2 years as a kind provide as a kind of case studies for the discussion today. The medical and healthcare NSP policy, as mentioned by Professor Xiao, is one of the major flagships of NSP program, and I believe this is one of the flagship program that actually delivered tangible results in the last 3 years, given considering the fact that the pandemic prevented a lot of interactions. Still, the result is still remarkable. I would like to highlight the objectives of the NSP policy on medical and healthcare. I actually moved the last objective of changing Taiwan to the first item, because that's our observation that the most direct positive impact of an NSP policy is actually changing Taiwan's attitude towards our NSP partners. For example, most of the medical and the pharmaceutical companies traditionally have no interest in NSP markets. But through this program, we actually elevate, first of all, draw their attention and also elevate their interest to explore the opportunities available in NSP. And also for many of the medical hospitals here, medical institutions here, because they need to promote NSP policies, then they start to get more connected with the local Taiwanese pharmaceutical and medical companies. So I think change in Taiwan was designed as the last item of the objective, but it is one of the probably the most direct impact, the positive outcome of the NSP policy, at least in the medical and healthcare sector. And there were other objectives of such as building image, deepening understanding, and I think many of these have been already mentioned by Professor Xiao. One key element in this medical and healthcare NSP is actually supply chain connectivity, supply chain and market connectivity. I think that's also important because despite the fact that NSP policy is a regional commitment and policy rather than a trade and investment policy, we need to create business opportunities to sustain the support from the private sector. That's the second observation that we want to share with you through this 2.5-year operation of the office. Now, another interesting design of the NSP on medical and healthcare is the one country, one system project, or in short, 1C1C. The one country, one center project means one medical center in Taiwan will be designated as a platform or the spearhead to serve as the coordination institute for cooperation with one NSP countries. For example, the NTU Hospital, the National Taiwan University Hospital, has been designated as the NSP for Indonesia. And for India, we have the National Cheng Kung University Hospital. So for these 7 priority partners, including the Philippines, Vietnam, Myanmar, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and India, we have designated 1 medical centers to provide not only the training capacity, but also what we call the networking with the local medical and pharmaceutical supply chains. And that is the key missions of the medical center involved. Here are some of the early results. I think the most notable result is the number of medical professionals receiving trainings under the auspices of the NSP program. You can see the number has been on the rise very significantly. Unfortunately, starting in 2020, we are facing, because of the pandemic, facing a lot of travel restrictions. So the number has come down, but now they are all changing to online or virtual mode of training. And also another interesting development is the inbound patient from into Taiwan for medical services. In the year 2018, patients from ASEAN 10 countries exceeds that of China. China has been, in the last 10 years, the largest source of inbound patients for Taiwan medical centers, but that's changed in the year 2018, and since 2018, ASEAN patients from 10 ASEAN countries have been the primary sources of inbound patients looking for medical services here in Taiwan. And not only ASEAN become the #1 source, but also, as you can see, the total number of inbound patients has been growing, indicating that the NSP on medical is delivering, at least creating a brand name or understanding among the public population in ASEAN countries and India. Trade performance varies across different countries. You can see export to India has been increased very significantly for medical products. But at the same time, in the year 2020, our export to Indonesia for medical products been declining vis-a-vis total product average. So different countries facing different, very, very different scenario and the situations. Now, this year, we're entering the second phase of the NSP program on medical and healthcare. There are 4 primary assignments for the second phase. The first one is 1C expansion. Now before this year, we have 7 medical centers. Starting from this year, there will be 3 additional medical centers added to the program. So Indonesia will be served by 2 medical centers, for example, so as is Vietnam and Malaysia. And also, we will start to explore investment opportunities. We will start to understand the investment opportunities for especially medical centers in the 7 priority NSP countries to create not only a medical kind of presence in that partner, but also to create a demo site for Taiwan's medical and pharmaceutical products. We're going to enhance networking elements in capacity building. So through capacity building programs, medical centers are required to design industrial or private sector tools to enhance understanding, just to give you an example. And also, we are trying to enhance private sector participation. We want to expand as many as possible private sector companies who are interested in NSP markets and other opportunities. So finally, the outlook. I think from a perspective of office that runs this program for the last 3 years, I think the success of the medical and health NSP policy is underpinned by, first of all, a well-defined scope and also a well-thought-of implementation strategies. The 1C program really delivers some of the key objectives of the NSP policy. And we create a kind of positive cycle. Because of the well-defined, well-thought-of implementing strategies, private sector's interest and participation is actually on the rise. And through the support of the private sectors, we are seeing a continued sustained interest from the Taiwanese government as well. So the key factors to have a second phase of the NSP policy on medical and healthcare is actually the positive circle provided by the success of the first phase, especially the support from the private sector. And also, I would like to elaborate again that the changing Taiwan effect is actually very important in the process. Finally, beyond COVID-19, Taiwan's been, I cannot say we are a success model, but I think we are a positive model in pandemic prevention and control. Cross-country pandemic prevention was already one of the key elements of the NSP on medical health and care programs. I think we'll continue and through experience sharing and other professional collaborations to ensure that when the next pandemic comes in this region, we are much more well prepared to face it, and I think Taiwan is ready to share and also to learn from each other. And that will be my conclusion. Thank you very much. And that's the website of the NSP program on medical health care and beyond. So you're welcome to just check out the website. Thanks. I'll stop here.
Thank you, Dr. Lee, and please join me in thanking both presenters virtually for giving some new insights into this NSP program. Currently, there are no questions in the Q&A, and I would again encourage people to post questions now that the talks have finished. But there is a question that I've seen from Minju, and I wonder, Minju, if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask your question verbally. We can continue for perhaps another 10 minutes or so, given that we started late and that I was disconnected for a while.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Xiao and Dr. Lee, for the excellent presentation, and also to let us know more about what this new Southbound policy is. So my question is, I study Taishan. I also study overseas Chinese entrepreneurship, and I have noticed that there has been Taishan has played a very important role in both China's economic development in the 1980s, and now there are a lot of investment, and there is a shift because of the Li Denghui's old Southbound policy to promote entrepreneurship in the region. So I'm wondering how the public sector and the government are trying to increase support for the Taishan in their entrepreneurial activities, and also whether the Taishan and also their organization would help promote the new Southbound policy to promote cultural exchange and also all these wonderful programs that the policy is aiming at. In other words, the government's support for Taishan and the role of Taishan in promote the Southbound policy. Thank you.
Okay, I can respond.
Please.
Okay. I think it's really important to mention about the Taishan's role. I think in the past 5 years, 4 years actually, to be exact, that Taiwan government has a new program called Encouragement of Returning Taishan to Taiwan, with more incentives in both of land, infrastructure, and so on and so forth. Is one aspect. That is not not directly related to newsbound policy. On the other hand, Taiwan government also helped the Taisang to shift their investment or move their establishment to Southeast Asia. And in the last 2-3 years, Vietnam is the most popular place for Taisang to move away from China and to Southeast Asia. And second country favorable is Indonesia. So that is, again, what the government did was to provide information and to play the brokerage, the information and provide loans. And so that was the one thing. And the other thing is Taisang themselves, as Professor Zhou mentioned, I think the TAEF, my foundation, has done the 3-country survey on the local elites image of the Taisang in Vietnam, Indonesia, and Thailand. And we have found that Taisang's image in Vietnam has been on the top, number 2. And in Thailand, we are on the number 1 among the 10 investing countries. And in Indonesia, we are in the middle level. We are number 5 or 6 among the investing countries. So therefore, with this report, we'd like to bring this report to the Taisang Federation, Taisang Business Association, so that they can develop a better social image in the local society, not just to provide jobs, not just to make money, but go into the social services and maybe set up a foundation and provide scholarship and provide a sort of internship for the young people in the country. So I think it is the foundation has trying to do that, and we work actually with the Zhonghua Institution on those surveys. So I think it's very important the role of Taisang. In one word, I think Taisang can and should change its existing image, because the image of Taisang in Southeast Asia has been mixed. Even though in Vietnam, in Thailand, we have very good positive image. But again, all in all, you can see that we don't want to be a industry who pollute the ecology. We don't want to be the exploiter of the region. So I think it's important to change the image as well.
Can I just add one quick footnote to that? I think in what areas Taisang need assistance from the government is also important. It's our observation that Taisang is doing probably a better job than the government in most areas, but there will be areas that we do need public sector participation to complete the last mile. For example, in our case, the role of the medical centers under the 1C program is very important, because we have been receiving complaints from Taisang in those countries that through their door knocking visits, they have difficulty access to the local hospitals in those countries. So now under this 1C design, now they are joining a team organized by the medical centers. So now they officially have access into those local hospitals. And what they report back to us is that they can do the rest beyond that. But they just need someone to knock on the door and let the door open. So this is one of the examples. And also, my center and the other colleagues are also helping many of the Taiwanese business associations in Vietnam, Thailand to publish a biannual white paper on policy advocacies. So it increased the weight of the business association of Taisang in the local market. So it's like a white paper published by AmCham or other Chamber of Commerce. So every 2 years, we will update the report. So and through this is already the 4th year, and the feedback we received from the local Taisang is that increased their interaction with the local government, I mean the national domestic government, and also increased the credibility of the Chamber of Commerce of Taiwanese businesses. So, and that requires some facilitation from the public sector. So I think the design of the assistance is actually very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Very amazing, impressive.
Yeah, thanks both of you. We also have a couple of questions from Xichan Dai, which again, Xichan, if you want to unmute yourself and pose the questions verbally, I think that would be best for all.
Thank you, Dr. Sheffer. And I would first like to thank Dr. Xiao and Dr. Li for your insightful talks. And I have a few questions related to the new southbound policy here. And my first question is, it's still commonly seen, especially in Taiwanese society, that Taiwanese people hold certain kind of prejudice against like the images of Southeast Asian countries. And I think it has a lot to do with the migrant workers from these countries in Taiwan. So I'm wondering, is there a policy solution to deal with this problem of prejudice? Since cultural exchange is also one of the major policy goals to be achieved under the new southbound policy. And my second question has to do with the economic aspect of this policy. So one of the major goals of new southbound policy is to decrease the dependence of Taiwan's economy on China. So I'm wondering what are the major industries that have reshored and moved from China to Southeast and South Asian countries, and what role do Taiwanese high-tech companies play in this process? Thank you.
Okay.
Please.
For this, for the image of Southeast Asian people in Taiwan, I think I agree that before the new spouse policy, I think the stereotype of Taiwanese common people on Southeast Asia was biased by their image of so-called blue collar, working class, proletarian workers, blue collar from Southeast Asia. As I mentioned earlier in my talk, there are more than 700,000 workers, and then they belong to the working class. So they will be kind of looked down upon. But then the new southbound policy has tried to change that. For example, NGO, there are many NGO try to help the foreign workers for their medical help, for their legal knowledge is very important when they face exploitation, or even for the domestic helper, the sexual harassment. So they have their stories. So we want an NGO to tell the foreign workers' story, to tell the public that we should respect them, we should protect their human rights, we should protect labor rights. So this, in the past few years, has been improving. I think it's very important to change that aspect. The second, the images was on the cross-border marriage, female marriage, border marriage spouses. I think again, many women's organizations and legal aid assistance also help them, educational association, help them when they settle in the Taiwanese family, especially in many counties, north, central, and south, help them to settle in the community, and even invite them to join the community activities. Actually, we do see the very impressive change. Many children, there are more than 100,000, 200,000 children born by our new, we call the new immigrant, or we call our daughter-in-laws, new daughter-in-laws. And actually, at the beginning, they were kind of ashamed, embarrassed that their parents are not Taiwanese. Their parents are, the mother are Vietnamese or Indonesian who cannot speak Taiwanese or Chinese. But nowadays, and in a few years, we collect data. And those children are very proud that their mothers are Vietnamese and Indonesian, because they can speak Vietnamese, they can speak Indonesian, and their classmates' mothers cannot speak. And also they know that their mothers are very active in the various community activities. So all I'm saying is that our TAEF, in TAEF, we also try to link, as Dr. Dai mentioned correctly, to these migrant workers and also the cross-border marriage spouses into the new southbound policy. We always believe charity or good deed should start should start at home. So I think in the next few months, my foundation will work with the Immigration Office of Interior Ministry to work on first on the cross-border marriage spouses, and to look at how we can help them better. And when we help, when I say we help those spouses, we help our future Taiwanese too, because there are children born to these multi-ethnic families. So I think this is an outreach, not part of the government program. So we want to include these migrant workers, new spouses into our new Southbound policy and start at home. So I will leave the firm thing to Li Chun.
Yes, thank you. Well, we can actually have a separate session on how the global supply reform agenda is impacting Taiwan, but I will cut the long story short. Now, the Taiwanese company moving back from China into Taiwan and beyond are actually commensurate to the level of offshore production from Taiwan to China in the last 25 years. So, the MOEA here in Taiwan undertakes an annual survey on where do Taiwanese companies deliver their export orders. And the number one sector that deliver their orders offshore is actually the contract manufacturing services of electronic products. And that is the exact group of companies who are moving back to Taiwan. Because according to the recent year's survey, over 90% of the contract manufacturers have their production lines in China, the highest sector among all other offshore manufacturing activities. And that is why it translates into over between 60 to 70% of the Taishan returning to Taiwan are actually in the electronic contract manufacturing sector. The second largest group is actually from the electric machinery sector, the sector which is also the second highest offshore production activity in China. So all in all, I think it's corresponding to the level of offshore in the last 25 years. Many of the companies are now moving to Vietnam. Vietnam has been becoming a very popular and very expensive destination for many of the Taishan. I think so. One of the key requests from the Taishan in Vietnam and also in Indonesia is to help develop new industrial land outside the popular area of Ho Chi Minh City, and so because it's getting in terms of cost unsustainable for Taishan to move to those areas. So anyway, so it's electronic contract manufacturers and electric machinery manufacturers that are reshoring and moving to Southeast Asia. Thank you.
Thank you for both of you. We're running out of time, but I do have two questions in the chat which I want to pose to you. One question is asking whether the Council of Indigenous Peoples is involved in the policy of cultural exchange, and the other question is asking how the NSP policy towards Myanmar is changing since the coup. If you can answer, if you have answered those questions briefly.
I can answer the one. Actually, yes. In terms of the Council of Indigenous Affairs has been part of a new Southbound policy, especially in the ethnic and cultural exchange. For example, in just this year, Taiwan, New Zealand, Australia, and Canada established a called Indigenous Peoples Economic and Trade Cooperation Arrangement, IPETCA. Taiwan is one of the founding signatories. Try to promote the economic entrepreneurship, economic initiative in the various countries' indigenous people. So this is a on the economic aspect of the indigenous people's economic entrepreneurship and help them to economic more independent and so on and so forth. This is on the economic side. On the cultural side, I think the indigenous people in Taiwan, Austronesian, has been very active to develop a cultural exchange with Austronesian friends in the region, especially Biak and some Philippines, Indonesia, and also New Zealand. So I think the link to us, I think if you look at the cultural resources, I think the Austronesian indigenous cultural heritage should be part of a New Southbound policy. And I think this go beyond New Southbound policy if you go to the Pacific Islands. I think in recent years, the Indigenous Council has been worked very hard in the Pacific areas, Pacific regions, Pacific Islands. I don't quite get the second question on Burma.
The question simply is whether much has changed since the coup in terms of SP policy there.
We have to play to my limited knowledge. I think I think the one country, one center has been there in Myanmar. The Xinguang Hospital is there, so I think they play cautiously there. And NGO is, to my knowledge, our report on the Taiwan's NGO activities in New Southbound policy country. I think the one lesson learned from the Taiwan's NGO working in services, philanthropic activities, is to leave the politics out, to get away from the politics. So I think they'll be fine. But in terms of economic trade and so on and so forth, that I am not too sure. If you look at the statistics, probably I think Myanmar's trade is I don't know. Maybe the Trent can answer that. But I think NGO, in terms of MPO activities, I think it was not affected by that much, but had to be very careful.
For the medical and healthcare cooperation, I think my understanding is that there's a profound impact on bilateral collaborations. For example, Xinguang Hospital, the medical center serving Myanmar, has been reporting back to us that they received a significant drop of application for training programs. And one of the reasons is that many of the medical professionals lost, at least for the short run, lost the interest of long-term planning. There have been caught in many of these chaotic situations in Myanmar, so they are not interested for training or other activities. And also, there is a very severe limitations on traveling. So the medical centers have difficulty travel and access to their traditional partners. So for the last year, because on top of the pandemic, the restriction actually prevent this medical center from visiting Myanmar at all. So there's a zero physical visit. There were virtual meetings, but no physical contact. So my conclusion is that as far as medical and healthcare collaboration is concerned, I think they are now in a very slow motion mode. Everything has been slowed down, and they take a kind of wait and see attitude towards the future. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm going to turn the floor back to Xijun Dai to close the meeting.
One more note about this Cambodia, and let me mention about Cambodia. You know, many people might wonder what happened to Cambodia and Taiwan relations. There's no formal relationship between Taiwan and Cambodia, and Cambodian politics has been that this is different from the democratic countries. But again, the NGO, Taiwan NGO, to my surprise, that many NGO was working in Cambodia. And many Thai son has been very interested in Cambodia. So that is something I think to my amazement. So I think again, this new Southbound policy, we try to play low key in politics, and we try to stable relations, economic relations, and we try to highlight the non-political and the friendship building in the 8 countries concerned by the New Southbound policy. So I think again, this is the beauty of the New Southbound policy. We do not exclude anyone. The policy is inclusive and all sectors and all countries.
Thank you. Shi-Chen.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shepard, for your great efforts to moderate today's event. I would also like to show my sincere gratitude to our speaker and our discussant for their fascinating talks and detailed responses in the Q&A. We thank all participants for a great discussion. We invite you to subscribe to our center's email list to learn more about UCLA Asia Pacific Center's future activities as they are announced. Good evening and good morning. We hope to see you again at our future events. Thank you, and please take care.
Goodbye.
Bye.